the 30th of September 2021, and it's my birthday today, and I have been overwhelmed once again by thousands and thousands of messages wishing me a happy birthday. I would love to reply to them all. The last time I think was 3 years ago. It took me 4 days, and it's like just double that amount of people now. So please don't be offended if I don't personally say thank you. I'm making this video for that reason. Is one of the reasons, especially as I'm banned from Facebook at the moment. So normally people would just put them on my wall and say happy birthday, Thomas, and I would tick it off. But I can't. They're sending me private messages and on all the media. So Jesus, it's just such a beautiful outpouring of like, love and just well wishing, and I'll never take any of you guys for granted. You're absolutely incredible people, and I'm so proud to be part of this tribe, and so proud to know so many fine and excellent people that have come into my life, especially in the last 2 years. And there's been many that have been there since I've been in secondary school. Like lots of my friends on social media, I actually went to school with them, and the family members and friends and stuff. But it's amazing, really. So it's a beautiful thing. So thank you very much for that. Now, aside from my current completed orbit around the sun, sticking with the thing of cosmology, it's some interesting stuff's happened. 2 days ago, we've been told now that NASA didn't see a massive asteroid literally clipped us, and they didn't see it until it passed. Now, naturally, they did see it before that, but this may have been the big one. This may have been the big one that I was talking about. And I was wondering if there was the whole lockdown or the Rona thing was a cover story for something like this. And people say, well, why did they inject people and stuff like that? Well, that's a reason to make it as plausible as possible. But just because it'd be on a need-to-know basis. The greedy bastards behind all the big pharma companies would be delighted with all these extra profits and stuff. They don't have to know the real reason or the possible real reason. And so it'd be just kept among a small circle of people who travel to each country and say, you got to do this, you got to do that. And it's more what you think it is. It's more than what you think it is. And just do it. And they did it. And what was remarkable about this thing is they said it came from the direction of the sun. Not unusual, it does happen, but it makes me wonder about Uma, as if that was sent out there, if that or was a warning mark by an ancient civilization to tell us that there is an area, something down the wrong way, a piece of fucking, when you get a piece of bread and it's stuck like there, a flake of like fucking crust, that like a warning beacon. That's to warn us that the solar system is moving into an area of extreme debris. Maybe the remains of a planet or something. Maybe the planet that created Uma stuck that thing up in space. And we've been definitely day after day. It's been a common story. It's been this kind of story. It's been that kind of story. We're about to be hit with a massive solar flare, and on top of that we have volcanoes very active all over the place. Not too much seismic activity yet, though, in terms of tectonic stuff. And I think something tells me that was the big one. This has happened before. It happened in 2008, I think it was. We were just narrowly clipped by one that would have been destroyed us, and there was a total media blackout on it. This time they went beyond media blackout. They went as far as creating a diversion in the form of the Rona and the ping pong. And maybe even the fact that these medications are changing people's reality was part of the plan. So it was a way of, in case someone found out, to stop massive public breakdown and riots and stuff like that. if they all knew the end was coming or possibly coming. So this kind of kept them comatose and drugged, and that was maybe the real purpose of the needlecraft. But I think this thing was colossal. And also, Jupiter was hit by something they reckon was the size of the Earth. So we're in a very dangerous, precarious place at the moment. And there may be more to come, but I don't think so. Someone tells me that was the one they were watching. They said they only knew about it after it missed us. But I don't believe them. I do not believe them. I think that they knew it all along, and they said it came from the direction of the sun, which is kind of weird as well. Usually they'd be inbound from the outer solar system, but this one's coming from the direction of the sun, so it's so far at us or something. I don't know, or that's a whiplash around the sun and gained, an orbital trajectory speed that was really high as it flew past us. But either way, we dodged the bullet. I mean, regardless if they knew beforehand or not, we dodged a bullet. Now, 2 or 3 days ago now, I think, there's been very little about Rona restrictions and Rona this and Rona that officially mentioned by governments in the last 2 or 3 days. Now, there has been shit-storing things whipped up in the media. There was one today in the Irish Independent where it said, is it time to get tough on hospital staff who refuse to take the COVID needlecraft? Now, it wasn't a government proclamation. It was one of these things that the media whips out in an editorial form in order to frighten the shite out of people and to cause people to talk or argue and then to get advertising money from the hype. But it was not real, but it got people really upset on both sides of the camp. But there's been nothing official. It's all gone very quiet in terms of latest government proclamations. The media has sunk into complete another psychosis. Mainly, and I think the reason why I saw a thing I could not believe, it was, if you haven't seen it, go look for it. Stephen Colbert dancing with people dressed up as vaccines to a kind of a 1950s, blue rondo a la Turk kind of jazz number, with the audience standing up dancing with him, going vaccine. You have not seen this thing, you would not. It's real. It reminds me of the scene in. It's so funny how art, art repeats life, or life repeats art, or maybe art generates reality, but in the magical sense. But have you seen Quatermass 3 with John Mills? The one about the lay people, Ringstone Round, fantastic if you haven't seen it. The one that was made by BBC TV in 1979. And at the beginning of that, he goes to a TV show. There's a live broadcast of an American spaceship in trouble. And it's in like a news magazine program. And he also has a photograph of his granddaughter who's missing. Turns out she's joined this cult, one of these like lay people cult. They're like a new age cult. They were being harvested by an alien force. I mean, it's like the Lovecraft thing. It's like when you read it and you look at it now, it's all coming true. But he's waiting. They won't give him enough time on the program, and it's just like big camp TV producers going, "Oh, Dad, we got Ickity Bumpity, Ickity Bumpity is coming on after you," and he goes, Ickity. I think it was called Ickity Bumpity or Ippity Bumpity, but it was a childlike, a name like what you have for a baby's TV show, like Teletubbies, but it was for adults. And then they showed the scene of what the show was like, and it was just bizarre, like naked women on a banana and stuff like that, and with like weird music. It's just the lowest form of like TV mind pap, and it was exactly what I thought of when I saw the Stephen Colbert thing with him dancing with people dressed like syringes. It was the first thing I thought. It was the Ickity Bumpity or Ippity Bumpity, or whatever the show was called, Bumpity, or whatever the show was called on the Quatermass. Yeah, someone will write down below, on Quatermass 3. And Quatermass could not believe that this was an adults program, and at the same time, there's there's factions going on and fighting outside between different factions who control London, and society is totally breaking down. And that felt like Professor Quatermass watching that Stephen Colbert dance number, did it vaccine, whatever it was. It's the most. You'd have it. Put it this way: you would have to be mentally ill to think there was anything not as creepy about it. In fact, anyone you know who has seen that Stephen Colbert vaccine thing and thinks it's funny or thinks it's cute or thinks it's really important, those types, get them fuckers out of your life, because you do not want people like that in your life. It reminds me one time about in the 1990s. I was working on Wall Street somewhere, and there was some very nice people working there, but they were, what you would call normies. And there's one lad there, an Italian American guy called Anthony, and a beautiful fella, a lovely soul. That's like so many Italian American types are, but just a lovely, big-hearted, friendly guy, young guy. He about the same age as me at the time, maybe a couple of years older. And it was the year that P. Diddy, or Puff Daddy, or he's known at the time, had scooped up loads of Grammys. And it was in the wake of the shooting of Biggie Smalls. And so he'd won the best song or something for his rap about Biggie Smalls. And it was done to Every Breath You Take by the Police. And they had on, and Sting came out to sing Every Breath You Take with the rap band. And this guy Tony I was with going, oh, I was so moved last night. I have so much more respect for Sting now. It's just a beautiful gesture he did. And I was like, what? You're not even into any of those kinds of music. But he just responded to the novelty of it. And although he was a nice fella and everything, I knew I'd never be friends with him, because there was an intellectual thing. I know it's probably an awful thing to say, really, but I need an element of intellectual proficiency for me to be friends with someone. Not because I think that people that don't reach that level are not worthy. It's just that I have a tendency to have a sense of humor that requires an element of intelligence. Like a lot of people don't get a lot of truthers don't get my sense of humor. As members don't get my sense of humor because they're one-dimensional and empty inside. And they don't, a lot of them are Asperger's or Aspie types. And they don't understand when I'm doing this outrageous satire, that it's satire. They think it's like me really talking about myself. And that's like how bizarre many truthers are. This is what, like you get a lot of, they don't get satire. They don't get it. And they're like Asperger's or extreme autistics. And the same cult, it's all, as they always say, that's one of the defining things of a cult member is they don't get satire. Because they're all like, if you meet people who are former Jehovah's Witnesses or raised in the Jehovah's Witness cult, they have real difficulty distinguishing nuances between comedy and reality, or satire and reality. And they get very offended very easily. They get very triggered very easily because they've been raised in this black and white notion of reality where something is either evil or something is get you into heaven. And if it's not getting you into heaven, it's evil. And they don't get like satire, because satire and, blue humor, really dirty humor, they wouldn't think that they wouldn't understand what the point you're really trying to make. They just think you're talking about how you think. Like they would think that these are the same people who attack soap opera characters in TV shows because they can't distinguish between the reality of the actor on the TV, like the bad guy in a soap opera, and the actor who plays him in real life. There's a disconnect there. That was the NPC thing. You get that a lot with like truthers and stuff like that. They don't get humor. They don't, especially satire. They think it's real. They don't understand this stuff. So this is why I'm saying I'm all for this, and that's why I would need a people with a certain level of, you need intelligence, or not be raised as a Jehovah's Witness to understand this. And that's why people who are raised as Jehovah's Witnesses, I write them off. I basically just write them off very early on, because they even admit themselves there's no hope for them. Many of them say that, because that's such an evil sect that it does this to these people. But if you look at like any kind of cult within alternative thinking, they've all got the same kind of people, and a lot of them are ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm amazed. If you were to do if you were to go do a random count, if you were to go to, say, a Freeman of the Land event or some kind of really out there truther event, and did a head count of like how many were raised Jehovah's Witnesses, I bet you half the hands in the audience would go up, because they cannot read, even, and they cannot read subtle nuances. So, they will take, like, anything as, this is the ones who will watch a conspiracy theory video and without questioning anything, automatically believe it. And then the next one, no matter how outrageous the conspiracy, automatically believe it. Because they can't distinguish and determine. Well, that will all come out one day, just how many Jehovah's Witnesses or people raised Jehovah's Witnesses were involved in this scene that's developed since, like, since maybe the year 2010. You'll be surprised. It's quite remarkable. Now, that's why I require a certain amount of, to be with me and around me, you have to deal with my sense of humor, which is it's like that, and it often involves like satirical things or breaking into character as a way of kind of describing the absurdity of the world. And, these kind of people don't get that. Why is he doing that funny voice? Why is he, like, the Anto and Deco thing, I know absolutely terrifies many people. They look at the Anto and they think I'm being mentally ill. They don't know that I'm putting two characters together that are based on archetypes in the north side of Dublin to kind of describe the absurdities of the world. But their brains don't get that. They can't nuance their way out in and out of that. It's very sad, actually. But that's what they've created in recent times, and that's I think that Stephen Colbert thing is proof that they're losing it, that they've gone mentally ill. The establishment, and particularly the mainstream media, have gone mentally ill. They got so much power and so much money were given to them by governments during the Rona that they're desperately trying to hang on to it at any cost. And now that quite possibly it's coming to an end, especially now that this asteroid has missed us. That's what you saw in that Stephen Colbert skit and things like it, is a nervous breakdown. They want so much that to be back to when they had people cowering in terror of this virus. And you'll see it across all the types of mainstream. This is why they invented in England on the BBC, they invented that fuel crisis thing. The media, that there was apparently a fuel crisis in England. I don't know if you heard about this. Didn't exist next door in Ireland, it didn't exist next door in France, only in England. It was created totally by the mainstream media, who claimed there was not enough truck drivers to get fuel to garages. And so people, gas stations, you Americans call them, people got all the normies ran out believing it and created these fuel shortage lines of queuing up for fuel, believing that there was a shortage. It was the same thing as the Rona thing. Now, the reason why that was done was because the Rona thing is wearing off, and the mainstream media misses the days when they had absolute control. So someone somewhere in the BBC or somewhere invented a fake fuel thing. Now, here in Ireland, something really bizarre is going down, and the same normies who accepted everything to do with the Rona as fact and are defending the governments and are in love with politicians have nothing to say about this most serious crisis. The most serious crisis is this country is nearly out of electricity. We've had green politicians in this country shut down peat-fired stations, oil and gas-fired stations, and replace them with windmills because, well, the wind blows a lot in Ireland, so we should be the Saudi Arabia of wind power. Anyone who knows anything about this stuff knows that those sort of middle-class dildos that pollute the countryside produce fuck all electricity for what's invested into them. And they even need a diesel engine to start them up, and they require 15 tons of oil lubricant a year, each one. But we live in an age where our establishment are so mentally ill that you have to remember now, we now live in a world where government policy is dictated to University policy is dictated to. Civil servant and bureaucrats, and even many corporations, they're dictated to by Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg is easily one of the most powerful human beings on this earth. Instead of the average politician, bureaucrat, such scientist, or TV media pundit, or environmental regulator turning around saying she's a fucking a gimp Swedish doom potato, they they idolize her because there's a huge amount of paedophilia involved in that too as well. A huge amount of paedophilia. She put that out there. There was also a pedophilic element to her when she was put out there, and there's a big part of that as well at first. And this is what that's all about. And so we now have a country where the middle classes and the government have done the whole wokey green thing, and we're at maximum capacity of power. Now, to make this even worse, Amazon are building a data center in Ireland. In fact, there's data centers going up all over Ireland. The reason for this is because our climate and air temperature is just right for data centers. Now, this one Amazon center they're building in North County, Dublin, you will use 5% of the national grid of Ireland. Just think about that. 5% of the national grid of Ireland will be used by one data center in Dublin. Amazon. Now, on top of that, they have not built any new oil or gas stations. And peat stations. They've been closing them down and replacing them with windmills. So you would think the government would do something like say, hold on, we've got to stop this. We can't be building data centers and giving planning permission for new ones, which they are right now, if we're already maxed out on electricity. What they're doing is, and this I cannot believe what I'm seeing, but it's just proof that we're living in a communist country. The government's saying, well, we hope there won't be any blackouts this winter. We hope there won't be any blackouts this winter. So these data centers, which chew up huge amounts of electricity, employ almost no one, are more of a priority for our government, the Irish government, than an old person who needs the heating on in winter. This is what we've come to. What Eamon Ryan and the rest of the politicians in Ireland were saying when they say these statements is, we hope it doesn't come to the point where we're killing your granny for Amazon's data center. But if it happens, where there should be a fucking revolution over this. Heads should be rolling over this. But then what the Irish are doing, they're like, oh, we may be getting data output, power outage. Now, this week, there were two massive infrastructural projects for Dublin. The expansion of the DART, which is the electric commuter rail system, which included a large tunnel of the city centre, has to be built because the city is a massive gridlock, along with the Metro Link, which is another rail line metro to be built between North County Dublin and south suburbs. Basically, the Green Minister put them both on hold this week without saying why. It's fucking obvious why. They don't have the electricity to run electric trains because ex-hamster, TikTok and all the rest, having enough data storage is more important to the government than building finishing off a commuter, a 50-year promised 50 years ago, still not a shovel in the ground, commuter rail system upgrade with tunneling because Amazon. And people put up with him. And they will sit in 3 hours of traffic in the morning when they could have a train whip them into the city centre in 20 minutes. No, they will put up with it. So I'm astounded at what the human race has become in recent times. A lot of it to do with the internet. And I'm astounded that people put up with things like being told there might be no lights. There might be no lights this winter because Amazon getting all electricity. And it's astounding that people put up with it. And they will. and they've been trained to put up with it, but because they've been put up with it. Look, if you can get people that go after 3 injections telling them that they're still not immune to the ping pong, and they can still pass it off, and they still have to wear a mask, and they can still die from it. You can tell them anything. You can tell them fucking anything, and they're loving it. And when they have the 77 booster in their head, the 77 booster in their going into their arm, they will still be there saying, "I'm safe now." So all I know is that the human race has reached a critical point of, not us though, of course, we're the tribe, but reached a point of no return in terms of cognitive collapse and mental deterioration. I don't know what the future holds. I mean, regardless of the asteroid missing, they were still going to want a population reduction. So that's all happening now. Like, I mean, there's articles saying they can't understand why there's a huge amount of heart attacks in England, in UK all of a sudden, caused by blood clots. Boo. Uh, at the very beginning of this thing, I said the best thing to do is just step aside and let them annihilate themselves. Because a force is controlling this planet that is determined on getting them to wipe themselves out. And to step in the way of that force is to put yourself in extreme danger. So, long live the tribe, because it's literally all we have now at this point. But it's if that's all we have, judging by the amount of love and kindness and care and decency I witness among all of you, well, it's no mean thing. So look after yourselves, take care, and thank you again for your kind birthday wishes. Love you all, and see you next time. Don't me.